Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Pioneer and watched their new home grow larger on the main screen. After 3 years traveling through space, they had finally reached Kepler 442b. The planet looked beautiful with its blue oceans and green continents. White clouds moved slowly across the surface, and Jake could see the lights of the automated cities that had been built by robots over the past 30 years. "Captain, we are ready to enter orbit," said Lieutenant Sam Parker from his position at the navigation controls. The young officer had been excited about this mission since they left Earth. Like everyone else on the ship, he was ready to start a new life on this world they would call New Terra. Jake nodded and looked around the bridge at his crew. Chief Engineer Lisa Harper was monitoring all the ship's systems to make sure everything worked perfectly for their arrival. Communications Officer Tony Walsh was listening to signals from the planet below, where thousands of machines had been preparing the world for human life. Navigation Officer Sam Parker kept checking their course to make sure they would land in exactly the right place. "Take us into orbit, Sam," Jake said quietly. He felt proud and nervous at the same time. This was the most important moment of his life. He was bringing 10,000 sleeping colonists to their new home. These people had left everything behind on Earth to come here and build a better future. Down in the civilian section of the ship, Ben Collins was also getting ready for their arrival. As the civilian administrator, he would be in charge of organizing the new colony once they landed. Ben had spent years planning how they would build their cities and farms. He knew exactly where each family would live and what jobs they would do. Ben walked through the corridors where the colonist families were waking up from their long sleep. The Cooper family was among them. Paul Cooper had been a farmer on Earth, and he was excited to grow food on New Terra. His wife Maria was a teacher who would help educate the children in their new schools. Their daughter Amy was 16 and full of energy about starting her life on a new planet. "Dad, can we see the planet yet?" Amy asked as she stretched and yawned. The long sleep had made her feel stiff, but she was too excited to care. "Soon, sweetheart," Paul said with a smile. "Soon we will see our new home." In the engineering section, Lisa Harper was watching the atmospheric processors that had been working on the planet for 3 decades. These massive machines had slowly changed the air so humans could breathe it. They had also planted millions of trees and created lakes and rivers. The planet had been dead when the machines arrived, but now it was alive and ready for human families. "All systems are working perfectly, Captain," Lisa reported over the communication system. "The atmospheric processors have finished their job. The air is clean and safe for humans. The temperature is just right, and there is plenty of fresh water." Jake smiled as he heard this good news. Everything had gone according to plan. Earth had spent enormous amounts of money and time to make this colony possible. Now 10,000 people would have a chance to build something amazing on this new world. As the Pioneer moved into orbit around New Terra, everyone could see the beautiful planet below them. The continents were covered with green forests and grasslands. Rivers wound through valleys like silver ribbons. The oceans were deep blue and clean. It looked like paradise. "Captain," Tony Walsh called out suddenly. His voice sounded worried. "I am picking up some strange signals from the dark side of the planet." Jake frowned and walked over to the communication station. "What kind of signals?" "They are not human signals, sir. They seem to be coming from very large objects hidden behind the planet." Before Jake could respond, the main screen changed. Massive alien ships were moving out from behind New Terra. They were huge, much bigger than the Pioneer. Their black metal hulls gleamed in the light of the system's star. Strange symbols and lights covered their surfaces. "How many ships are there?" Jake asked in a quiet voice. "At least 50, sir." "Maybe more." "They are all much bigger than us." The bridge became very quiet. Everyone stared at the alien fleet on the screen. These ships looked powerful and dangerous. They had been hiding and waiting for the humans to arrive. Then the communication system crackled to life. A strange voice spoke in perfect English, though it sounded cold and mechanical. "Human vessel, you will listen to our words. This world belongs to the Zephyrian Dominion. You have 72 hours to leave this system and never return. If you do not obey, we will destroy your ship and kill every human on this planet. This is your only warning." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in complete silence. Jake looked at his crew and saw fear in their eyes. They had traveled across the galaxy to reach their new home, only to find that someone else wanted to take it away from them. Jake thought about the 10,000 people on his ship who had given up everything to come here. He thought about the children like Amy Cooper who dreamed of growing up on New Terra. He thought about all the years of work and money that had gone into preparing this world for human life. "Sir, what are your orders?" Sam asked nervously. Jake straightened his shoulders and looked at the alien fleet on the screen. His voice was calm but determined when he spoke. "We are not leaving. This is our home now." 3 days after the alien warning, the attack began. Jake Morrison had used every minute to prepare for what was coming. The Pioneer was not a warship, but he would make it into one. The massive colony ship landed on the surface of New Terra near the main city that robots had built for them. The ship would be their fortress. Colonel Ryan Davis had been sleeping in the civilian section when the crisis started. He was retired from Earth's military, planning to become a farmer on New Terra. Now he was a soldier again. Ryan quickly organized all the former military personnel among the colonists. There were not many, but they knew how to fight. "Listen up, everyone," Ryan told the group of 23 former soldiers who had gathered in the ship's main cargo bay. "We have about 200 hunting rifles and some mining equipment. That is all we have to fight with. But we are going to make it count." Dr. Amanda Ross was working frantically in her laboratory. She was the colony's chief scientist, and she knew more about New Terra than anyone else. The terraforming machines could be turned into weapons if she was smart about it. The atmospheric processors could make poison gas instead of clean air. The mining charges could become bombs. "Lisa, I need you to help me reprogram the processors," Amanda said to the chief engineer. "We can use them to create chemical weapons that will hurt the aliens but not harm humans." Lisa Harper nodded grimly. She had spent her whole career building things, not destroying them. But now she had to learn how to turn peaceful machines into instruments of war. Meanwhile, Ben Collins was organizing the civilian population. Most of the colonists had no military training, but they were determined to protect their new home. Families like the Coopers were given simple jobs that would help the defense. "Amy, you are young and fast," Ben told the 16-year-old girl. "We need you to be a messenger. You will carry information between different parts of our defense network." Amy Cooper nodded seriously. She had grown up quickly in the past 3 days. The scared teenager who had worried about making friends in their new school was gone. Now she was a young woman ready to fight for her family and her future. Her father, Paul, had volunteered to help build defensive positions around the landing site. The farmer's strong hands that had planted seeds on Earth now dug trenches and built walls. His wife Maria organized the other families to gather food and medical supplies. "We have to make sure everyone has what they need," Maria told a group of mothers who were worried about their children. "If we work together, we can survive." This, Captain Jake Morrison established his command center in the Pioneer's Bridge. From there, he could see the alien ships in orbit above them. The Zephyrians had not attacked immediately. They seemed to be waiting for something. "Tony, are you getting any more communications from the aliens?" Jake asked his communications. "Officer, nothing, sir." They have been completely quiet since their first message. Jake knew the aliens were probably confused. Most species they had conquered before had run away when threatened. The Zephyrians did not understand why humans were staying to fight. On the fourth day, the first alien shuttles began landing on New Terra. They came down far from the human settlement, but Amy Cooper spotted them while running messages between defensive positions. "Colonel Davis, I can see alien soldiers coming out of their ships," Amy reported breathlessly. "They have some kind of energy weapons and armor that looks very advanced." Ryan Davis looked through his binoculars at the distant alien landing zone. The Zephyrian soldiers were tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. Their weapons glowed with blue energy, and their armor seemed to be made of some kind of living metal that moved and shifted. "How many do you count, Amy?" "Maybe 100 in this group, but more ships are landing all the time." Ryan nodded and turned to his radio. "All units, this is Colonel Davis. The aliens are landing ground forces. They will probably attack our position soon. Remember your training and stay calm." Dr. Amanda Ross had finished modifying the first atmospheric processor. Instead of making clean air, it was now producing a toxic gas that would be deadly to the aliens but harmless to humans. She had studied the alien biology from their first transmission and found weaknesses they did not know they had. "The gas is ready," Amanda told Jake over the radio. "When they get close enough, we can release it." The first battle happened 2 days later. A group of 50 Zephyrian soldiers approached the human settlement, expecting an easy victory. They had conquered many other species and thought humans would be just as weak. They were wrong. Colonel Ryan Davis had positioned his 23 former soldiers in hidden spots around the settlement. When the aliens got close, the humans opened fire with their hunting rifles. The bullets could not penetrate the alien armor completely, but they did damage. More importantly, the aliens were shocked that the humans fought back at all. In their experience, primitive species surrendered immediately when faced with superior technology. Amy Cooper was hiding in a building nearby, watching the battle and ready to carry messages. She saw one alien soldier fall when a human bullet hit a weak spot in his armor. She saw another alien stumble when Dr. Ross released a small amount of her poison gas, but she also saw human soldiers get hit by alien energy weapons. The blue beams cut through their simple defenses like they were made of paper. 3 former soldiers died in the first 10 minutes of fighting. "Fall back to secondary positions," Ryan ordered over his radio. His voice was calm, but Amy could hear the sadness in it. These were good people dying to protect their new home. The battle lasted for 6 hours. When it was over, the aliens controlled part of the settlement, but they had lost 15 soldiers. The humans had lost 8 people, including Paul Cooper, who had died defending the eastern edge of town. Amy held her mother Maria as they both cried for the husband and father they had lost. But even through their grief, they knew they could not give up. Paul had died protecting their home, and they would honor his memory by continuing to fight. Jake Morrison stood in the ruins of what was supposed to be their first school and made a promise to his people. "They wanted our home. Now they are going to learn what it costs to take something from humans." 3 months had passed since Paul Cooper died defending the eastern districts of New Terra. The settlement that was supposed to be a peaceful farming community had become a battlefield. Half of the 10,000 colonists were dead, but the survivors refused to surrender. Maria Cooper no longer looked like the gentle teacher who had arrived on the Pioneer. Her clothes were dirty and torn from living in underground tunnels. Her hands were rough from handling weapons and building defensive positions. But her eyes still burned with determination to protect her daughter and honor her husband's sacrifice. Amy Cooper had changed even more than her mother. The 16-year-old girl who had been excited about starting school on a new planet was gone. In her place was a young woman who could move through alien patrols without being seen and plant bombs that destroyed enemy equipment. She had learned to kill, and she was good at it. The aliens have a supply convoy coming through Sector 7. Tomorrow morning, Amy reported to Colonel Ryan Davis. In the underground command center they had built beneath the ruins of the original settlement. I counted 12 vehicles and about 30 guards. Ryan looked at the map on his table and nodded. We can hit them at the bridge crossing. Maria, can your group be ready? Maria Cooper had become the leader of the civilian resistance fighters. These were ordinary people like teachers and farmers and shopkeepers who had learned to fight because they had no choice. They were not as skilled as the former soldiers, but they fought with desperate courage. We will be ready, Maria said quietly. My people know what to do. The Zephyrian ground forces controlled most of New Terra's surface, but they were learning that controlling ground and winning a war were very different things. War Commander Vexful had expected to conquer this world in a few days. Instead, he had been fighting for 3 months against an enemy that seemed to appear and disappear like ghosts. Every day, his soldiers died in ambushes and sabotage attacks. Every night, human fighters crept through his defensive lines to plant bombs and steal supplies. The primitive weapons the humans used should not have been effective against Zephyrian technology, but somehow the humans made them work. Dr. Amanda Ross had spent the 3 months learning everything she could about Zephyrian biology. Using tissue samples from dead alien soldiers, she had created diseases that specifically targeted their immune systems. The beautiful forests and grasslands of New Terra had become a weapon against the invaders. The biological agents are working better than some. I hoped, Amanda told Jake Morrison in their underground laboratory. The aliens are getting sick faster than their medical technology can treat them. Their casualty rates are increasing every week. Jake nodded grimly. He had never imagined that their peaceful terraforming project would become a tool for biological warfare. But the aliens had chosen this fight, and humans would use every advantage they could find. The most successful part of the human resistance was the night raids led by Colonel Davis. The former soldier had studied the alien patrol patterns and found ways to strike at their weakest points. His teams would attack quickly and then disappear into the tunnel networks before the aliens could respond. Remember, we are not trying to win big battles, Ryan told his raiders before their next mission. We are trying to make them pay a price for every day they stay on our world. Make them afraid to leave their bases. Make them wish they had never heard of humans. Amy Cooper was part of tonight's raid. She would guide the team through the alien perimeter and help them plant explosives in an enemy ammunition depot. It was dangerous work, but Amy had done it many times before. The team moved through the darkness like shadows. Amy led them past 2 alien sentries who never saw them coming. The humans had learned to move without making any sound, to hide in places the aliens would never think to look. They reached the ammunition depot without being discovered. Ryan's demolition expert, a former miner named Steve Johnson, placed charges that would destroy the entire building. The team was preparing to leave when alarm sirens began to wail. They know we are here, Ryan whispered into his radio. Everyone, move to extraction point 2. The team ran through the alien base as energy beams flashed around them. Amy stayed close to her mother, who was carrying important intelligence they had gathered about alien troop movements. They could not let that information be lost. Behind them, the ammunition depot exploded in a massive fireball that lit up the night sky. The explosion was so powerful that it damaged 3 other alien buildings and destroyed 2 of their vehicles. But the humans paid a price for their success. Steve Johnson was hit by an alien energy beam as they escaped. He died instantly, leaving behind a wife and 2 young children who were hiding in the underground shelters. When they returned to the resistance, Base, Amy found herself comforting Steve's widow while her mother organized the intelligence reports. Death had become a constant companion in their new life, but they could not let it stop them from fighting. Captain Jake Morrison received a message that changed everything. Deep space sensors had detected human ships approaching the new Terra system. Earth had not forgotten about their colony. Help was coming. Admiral Kate Sullivan is leading a fleet of 47 warships, Tony Walsh reported excitedly. They will arrive in 6 weeks. The news spread quickly through the resistance network. For the first time in months, the surviving colonists felt hope. They just had to hold out for 6 more weeks, but the aliens had intercepted the same transmission. War Commander Vex Vol knew that his easy conquest was about to become a real war. He ordered his forces to begin the final assault on the human resistance. If he could kill all the surviving colonists before the Earth fleet arrived, he might still claim this world for the Zephyrian Dominion. The battle for New Terra was about to enter its deadliest phase. Amy Cooper checked her weapons and looked at her mother. They had survived 3 months of hell, but the worst was yet to come. "Are you ready for this?" Maria asked her daughter. Amy's answer was simple and cold. "They killed Dad. They destroyed our home. I have been ready since the day they landed." The space around New Terra erupted in fire and light as Admiral Kate Sullivan's fleet dropped out of hyperspace. The massive dreadnought UES Retribution led 46 other warships into battle against the Zephyrian fleet that had been occupying the system for months. "All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan. We are here to take back our home. Show these aliens what happens when they threaten human colonies." The Earth fleet had been built specifically for this mission. Every shipyard in human space had worked day and night to create the most powerful military force humanity had ever assembled. The ships were painted black with red stripes, and their hulls were covered with weapons designed to destroy alien vessels. Fleet Captain Steve Morgan commanded the carrier UES Liberty from its bridge as it launched wave after wave of fighters. The pilots were young men and women who had volunteered to fly dangerous missions against an enemy that had superior technology. They knew many of them would not survive the battle, but they were determined to save the colonists below. Fighter. Wing Alpha, target the alien battleships. Wing Beta, clear a path for our dropships. Wing Gamma, provide cover for the Retribution's main assault. The Zephyrian fleet had been caught by surprise. They had expected to face primitive human technology, not a fleet of advanced warships crewed by people who were angry about the invasion of their colony world. The first exchange of fire destroyed 3 alien ships and damaged many others. On the planet's surface, the surviving colonists heard the thunder of orbital combat and knew their salvation had arrived. Maria Cooper gathered the resistance fighters in the underground command center where they had been hiding for months. "The Earth fleet is here," she announced to the cheering crowd. "But we still have work to do. The aliens on the ground are trapped, and they will fight harder now that they know they cannot escape." Amy Cooper was preparing for what might be the final battle of the war. She checked her weapon and the small explosive charges she carried for sabotage missions. At 17 years old, she had become one of the most effective fighters in the Pitaviders in the Pamiadid years old. She had become one of the most effective fighters in the Fangdi Mimist effective fighters in the Fenme resistance. The aliens had learned to fear the young human who could appear anywhere and strike without warning. Colonel Ryan Davis was coordinating with the orbital fleet to plan the final assault on the Zephyrian ground forces. His radio crackled with reports from Admiral Sullivan's ships as they systematically destroyed the alien fleet above. "Colonel Davis, this is Commander Lucy Martinez aboard the dropship Falcon. We are ready to begin landing operations." "What is your situation down there?" "Commander Martinez, we have approximately 2,000 human survivors still fighting. The aliens control about 60% of the main settlement, but we have them surrounded. They cannot retreat and they cannot receive reinforcements. Lucy Martinez was leading the first wave of dropships through the battle-torn atmosphere of New Terra. Her ship was loaded with fresh troops and supplies for the embattled colonists. Behind her, dozens of other dropships carried everything the survivors would need to rebuild their shattered colony. The dropships had to fight their way through alien, anti-aircraft fire to reach the surface. Several were hit and crashed in flames, but most made it through. When Lucy's ship landed near the resistance base, she was amazed by what she found. The colonists who came out to meet them looked like soldiers who had been fighting a war for years, not farmers and teachers who had come to start a peaceful settlement. They moved with the careful efficiency of people who had learned that mistakes meant death. Their clothes were patched and dirty, their weapons were crude but effective, and their eyes held a hardness that spoke of terrible experiences. Maria Cooper was among the first to greet the newcomers. The woman who had once taught children how to read and write now carried an alien energy weapon she had taken from a dead Zephyrian soldier. "Welcome to New Terra," Maria said with a grim smile. "I hope you are ready for a fight." Commander Martinez looked around at the ruins of what should have been a thriving human settlement. Buildings were destroyed, streets were cratered by explosions, and alien defensive positions were scattered throughout the area. It looked like a war zone, which was exactly what it had become. "We brought medical supplies, weapons, and 3,000 fresh troops," Lucy told Maria. "What do you need most?" "Revenge," Amy Cooper said quietly as she approached the group. The teenage girl carried herself like a veteran soldier, and her voice held a coldness that made the newcomers uncomfortable. "We need to make them pay for what they did to our families." Dr. Amanda Ross emerged from her underground laboratory carrying samples of the biological weapons she had developed. The gentle scientist who had come to study alien plant life had become an expert in alien biology for very different reasons. "I have created diseases that specifically target Zephyrian physiology," Amanda explained to the Earth Fleet's medical officers. "We can deploy them across the entire planet if necessary. The aliens have no immunity to these pathogens." Admiral Sullivan's voice came over the radio from orbit. "Ground forces, this is Admiral Sullivan. We have destroyed most of the alien fleet, but a few ships escaped to hyperspace. The aliens on the planet are cut off from any hope of rescue. How do you want to proceed?" Captain Jake Morrison had been listening to the communications from his position in the makeshift command center. The man who had brought 10,000 hopeful colonists to their new home now commanded fewer than 2,000 survivors. He had watched his people die for months while Earth prepared to send help. "Admiral, this is Captain Morrison. We appreciate the rescue, but we want to finish this ourselves. These aliens came to our home and tried to take it from us. They killed our families and destroyed our dreams. We want them to understand the price of threatening humans." The final assault began at dawn. Human fighters who had survived months of guerrilla warfare joined fresh troops from Earth in a coordinated attack on the remaining Zephyrian positions. The aliens fought desperately, knowing they faced death if they were captured. Amy Cooper led a team of resistance fighters through the ruins of her old neighborhood. She could see the house where her family was supposed to live, now nothing but rubble and broken dreams. Her father had died defending these streets, and she would honor his memory by driving out every alien invader. The battle was fierce but brief. The Zephyrians were outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded. More importantly, they were fighting people who had nothing left to lose and everything to gain by winning. By noon, the last alien resistance had been crushed. War Commander Thex Philluck was captured alive in the ruins of his command center. When he was brought before Captain Morrison, the alien leader tried to justify his invasion. This world was valuable. It was natural for us to claim it. Your species is primitive and weak. Jake Morrison looked at the alien commander and thought about all the people who had died defending their new home. Then he gestured toward Amy Cooper, who stood nearby with her weapon ready. That primitive and weak girl has killed more of your soldiers than anyone else in this war. She was 16 when you invaded. Look at what you turned her into. The war for New Terra was over, but Admiral Kate Sullivan was not finished with the Zephyrian Dominion. Her fleet had captured several alien ships intact, and the computers on those vessels contained navigation data that showed the locations of every Zephyrian world and military base. Captain Morrison, I need to ask you a difficult question, Admiral Sullivan said during a meeting in the ruins of the Colonial Administration Building. Do you want justice or do you want revenge? Jake Morrison looked around the table at the other survivors. Maria Cooper sat with her daughter Amy, both of them still wearing the weapons they had carried throughout the war. Colonel Ryan Davis had lost an arm in the final battle but refused medical evacuation. Dr. Amanda Ross held samples of the biological weapons she had created to kill their enemies. What is the difference? Amy Cooper asked. Her voice was quiet, but hard as steel. They came to our home and tried to kill us all. They murdered my father. They destroyed everything we built. Justice would be putting them on trial. Revenge would be making sure they never do this to anyone else. Admiral Sullivan nodded slowly. She had read the reports from the colony and understood what these people had endured. The peaceful farmers and teachers who had come to build anew. Life had been forged into something harder and more dangerous by months of desperate fighting. The Zephyrian homeworld is called Zeph Prime. It has a population of 12 billion aliens. They have been conquering other species for thousands of years. This is not the first time they have invaded someone else's home and tried to commit genocide. Maria Cooper spoke for the first time since the meeting began. How many other species have they destroyed? According to their own records, at least 47 different civilizations. They keep trophies from each conquest. Artwork, cultural artifacts, recordings of the final moments before each species was wiped out. The room became very quiet. Amy Cooper's hands clenched into fists as she thought about 47 different worlds, where families like hers had been murdered by Zephyrian invaders. What are you proposing, Admiral? Jake Morrison asked. I am proposing that we send a message to the galaxy. A message that says what happens when you threaten human colonies. The Zephyrian Dominion has been expanding for millennia because no one has ever made them pay a real price for their conquests. Dr. Amanda Ross looked up from her. Biological samples. I can modify these weapons to target Zephyrian biology on a planetary scale. Their entire species could be extinct within months. That would make us no better than them, Colonel Davis said quietly. Genocide is genocide, even when the people you are killing deserve it. Amy Cooper stood up from her chair and walked to the window where she could see the memorial wall they had built for the human dead. 5,000 names were carved into black stone, including her father's name near the top. They did not just try to kill us, she said without turning around. They tried to erase us. They wanted to take our home and pretend we never existed. If we let them go back to their world and continue conquering other species, then all these people died for nothing. Admiral Sullivan activated a holographic display that showed the Zephyrian star system. I am not talking about genocide. I'm talking about justice. We destroy their military, we destroy their government, and we make it impossible for them to threaten anyone else ever again. The survivors of New Terra spent 3 days deciding what to do. They walked through the ruins of their settlement and visited the graves of their friends and families. They thought about the homes they had planned to build and the children who would never grow up on this world. When they reconvened, their decision was unanimous. We want them to understand what they did to us. Maria Cooper said simply. We want them to feel the fear that our children felt when alien ships appeared in our sky. We want them to know what it means to have their home threatened by strangers with superior weapons. Admiral Sullivan's fleet had grown while they deliberated. More ships had arrived from Earth carrying fresh troops and advanced weapons. The human military had been mobilizing for months, and now they had assembled the largest fleet in human history. The journey to Zeph Prime took 2 weeks. During that time, the survivors of New Terra worked with Earth's military planners to design an operation that would end the Zephyrian threat forever without committing genocide. Amy Cooper had been given a position on Admiral Sullivan's staff. Despite her young age, her experience fighting the aliens on the ground made her valuable for planning the invasion. She spent hours studying intelligence reports about Zephyrian society and military organization. They have never lost a war, Amy reported to the senior officers. Their entire culture is built around the idea that they are superior to every other species. They do not even have words in their language for concepts like surrender or retreat. That will make this more difficult, Admiral Sullivan said. If they cannot surrender, they will fight to the death. Good, Amy replied coldly. That will make the lesson clearer for anyone who might be thinking about following their example. When the human fleet arrived at Zeph Prime, they found a heavily defended system with orbital weapons platforms and patrol fleets protecting the approaches to the homeworld. The Zephyrians had received word of their defeat at New Terra and were preparing for retaliation. They were not prepared for what actually came. Admiral Sullivan did not attack the planet directly. Instead, she positioned her fleet at the edge of the system and began broadcasting a message on all frequencies. The message was simple and delivered in Amy Cooper's young voice. People of the Zephyrian Dominion, this is Amy Cooper of New Terra. I am 17 years old. When I was 16, your military invaded my home and tried to kill my family. They succeeded in murdering my father along with 5,000 other innocent people. They destroyed the colony we spent 30 years building. They did this because they wanted our world for themselves. The message continued for 10 minutes, describing the war from the perspective of the human colonists. Amy's voice remained calm and controlled as she explained how farmers and teachers had been forced to become soldiers to defend their homes. Now we are here at your world. We have weapons that could destroy your entire planet in minutes. We have diseases that could kill every member of your species within months. We could do to you what you tried to do to us. Admiral Sullivan watched the response from the Zephyrian homeworld on her communication screens. Panic was spreading through their cities as the population realized they were facing the same threat they had inflicted on dozens of other species. But we are not you, Amy's message continued. We do not murder innocent people. We do not destroy entire civilizations. We are here to make sure you never hurt anyone else the way you hurt us. The human fleet began its attack on Zeph Prime's military installations. Every weapons platform, every military base, and every warship in the system was systematically destroyed. The aliens fought back desperately, but they were facing people who had learned that sometimes you have to fight for what matters most. When the battle was over, the Zephyrian Dominion's military had been completely eliminated. Their government had surrendered, and their ability to threaten other worlds had been destroyed forever. But the message had been sent to every species in the galaxy. Humanity had shown that they would travel across the stars to protect their people and punish those who threatened them. Amy Cooper stood on the bridge of the Tigris de travel across the stars to protect their people and punish those who threatened them. Retribution, and watched the defeated alien homeworld spinning slowly below them. She thought about her father and all the other people who had died defending New Terra. They got our fury, she said quietly. Now let everyone else decide if they want the same. 6 months after the destruction of the Zephyrian military, New Terra was being rebuilt. The colony that had been turned into a battlefield was slowly becoming a home again. New buildings rose from the rubble of the old ones, and green parks were planted where alien defensive positions had once stood. Maria Cooper walked through the memorial garden they had built in the center of New Sacramento, the colony's capital city. 5,000 black stone markers bore the names of humans who had died defending their new home. Her husband Paul's name was carved on the first stone, along with the words, "He died so others could live free." Amy Cooper was now 18 years old and studying at the New Terra Institute of Xenobiology. The university had been built on the site where the Zephyrian Command Center once stood. Amy was learning about alien species not to create weapons against them, but to understand how to prevent future conflicts. "Mom, I got accepted to the Diplomatic Corps training program," Amy told her mother as they stood together in front of Paul's memorial stone. "They want me to help negotiate with other alien species so we can avoid wars like this one." Maria smiled and put her arm around her daughter. The hard-faced young warrior who had killed alien soldiers was still there, but she was learning to be other things as well. The galaxy needed people who could fight when necessary, but who preferred to talk first. "Your father would be proud of you," Maria said softly. "He always believed that people could solve their problems without violence if they just tried hard." Enough. Dr. Amanda Ross had become the Director of Planetary Defense for all human colonies. Her office was in the rebuilt scientific complex, where she continued to study ways to protect human settlements from alien threats. The biological weapons she had created during the war were stored in secure facilities, ready to be used if humanity faced another invasion. "We have detected 17 different alien civilizations watching our expansion," Amanda reported to the Colonial Defense Council during their monthly meeting. "Most of them seem curious rather than hostile, but we need to be prepared for anything." Colonel Ryan Davis had been promoted to general and put in charge of training the Colonial Defense Forces. Every human settlement now had a garrison of soldiers who were ready to fight if aliens threatened their homes. The lesson of New Terra had been clear. Humans needed to be able to defend themselves. Captain Jake Morrison had been given command of the new UES Pioneer II, a colony ship that was carrying another 10,000 settlers to establish humanity's next interstellar settlement. This time, the colony ship traveled with an escort of 6 warships and a full battalion of Marine soldiers. "We learned from New Terra that hope is not enough," Jake told his crew as they prepared to depart for their new destination. "We need to be ready for whatever we find out there." The galaxy had indeed learned about humanity's capabilities. The story of New Terra had spread to every spacefaring civilization, carried by traders and diplomats who spoke in whispers about the species that had traveled across the stars to destroy an empire that threatened their colony. Some alien races sent ambassadors to Earth, hoping to establish peaceful relationships with humanity. They offered trade agreements and cultural exchanges, making it clear that they had no intention of becoming humanity's enemies. Other species began avoiding human space entirely. They changed their expansion routes to steer clear of any system where humans had established colonies. The reputation of the species that had turned peaceful terraforming equipment into weapons of war preceded them wherever they went. Admiral Kate Sullivan had been promoted to Fleet Admiral and given command of all human military forces. Her headquarters was on New Terra, in a building that overlooked the Memorial Garden. From her office window, she could see the names of everyone who had died in humanity's first interstellar war. The Zephyrian homeworld is slowly recovering, Admiral Sullivan reported to Earth's government during a secure communication session. Their population has fallen to 8 billion due to the economic collapse that followed our destruction of their military, but they are not extinct. They have requested permission to establish diplomatic relations with humanity. The response from Earth was swift and clear. Any diplomatic contact with the former Zephyrian Dominion must be approved by the survivors of New Terra. They earned the right to decide how we deal with the species that tried to destroy them. Amy Cooper, now a senior student in the diplomatic program, was asked to lead the first human delegation to meet with Zephyrian representatives. The meeting would take place on a neutral space station operated by one of the galaxy's older civilizations. "Are you sure you want to do this?" her mother asked when Amy told her about the assignment. "You do not have to face them again if you do not want to." Amy looked out the window of their new house at the rebuilt city where she had grown up during a war. Children were playing in parks that had once been battlefields. Farmers were growing food in fields that had been covered with alien blood. Life had returned to New Terra, but it was a different kind of life than anyone had originally planned. "I need to see what they have become," Amy said quietly. "Dad always said that people could change if they learned from their mistakes." Maybe the Zephyrians learned something from losing their empire. The meeting took place 3 months later. Amy Cooper sat across a table from former War Commander Thexville, who had been released from human custody as part of the diplomatic exchange. The alien leader looked older and more tired than she remembered from the war. "You were the young human who killed so many of my soldiers," Thexville said in careful English. He had spent months learning human languages as part of his people's effort to understand their former enemies. "I was the young human whose father you murdered," Amy replied calmly. "I was the young human whose home you tried to steal. I was the young human who learned that sometimes you have to fight for what matters most." The former Zephyrian commander was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer than it had been during the war. "My people believed we were superior to all other species. We thought conquest was our right because we had the power to take what we wanted. The war with your colony taught us that power alone does not make you superior. Your people fought with primitive weapons and won because you are fighting for something more important than conquest." Amy studied the alien's face, looking for signs of deception. She had learned during the war to read enemy intentions, and those skills served her well in diplomacy. "What do your people want now?" she asked. "We want to survive. We want to rebuild our civilization without threatening others. We want to learn from species like yours instead of trying to conquer them." The negotiations continued for weeks. In the end, humanity agreed to provide technical assistance to help the former Zephyrian worlds recover from their economic collapse. In exchange, the aliens would share their historical records of the 47 species they had destroyed, so that humanity could try to locate any survivors who might still exist in hiding. When Amy returned to New Terra, she found her mother working in the school that had been built on the site of their original landing zone. Maria Cooper was teaching a new generation of colonial children, including several who had been born during the war. "How did the negotiations go?" Maria asked as they walked home together through streets that bore the names of human heroes. "They are different now," Amy said thoughtfully. "Losing their empire broke something inside them. They understand that what they did was wrong, and they want to make amends. It will take generations to rebuild trust, but it is possible." They stopped in front of the memorial garden where Paul Cooper's name was carved in stone along with thousands of others. New flowers had been planted around the markers, and the evening light made the black stone glow softly. "Do you think Dad would approve of making peace with them?" Amy asked. Maria considered the question carefully. "Your father believed that everyone deserved a chance to be better than they were. If the Zephyrians are truly trying to change, then, yes, I think he would want us to help them become something better." Above them, the lights of passing ships could be seen moving across the star-filled sky. Some were human vessels carrying colonists to new worlds. Others belonged to alien species who had requested permission to travel through human space on peaceful missions. The galaxy had learned the lesson of New Terra. Humanity could be approached with offers of friendship and trade, but never with threats of conquest. The species that had traveled across the void to build new homes would travel just as far to protect them. Amy Cooper looked up at the stars and thought about all the worlds where humans were building new lives. Each colony ship now carried the Thigid, memory of New Terra, and each settlement was ready to defend itself if necessary. They had wanted humanity's home. Instead, they had gotten humanity's fury. Now the galaxy knew the price of threatening Earth's children, and most species chose friendship over war. The war for New Terra was over, but its lesson would echo across the stars for generations to come. Humanity had learned to reach for the heavens with both hands extended, one offering friendship to those who came in peace, and one ready to strike down those who came with conquest in their hearts.